Greetings and salutations. Thank you for joining us. My name is Johnny Nadeau, and you have entered Embrace Your Storm, where we've got an awesome episode for you as always. And today we're speaking with Bill Campo, and he is from the band Canarex.
Kinaxis.
Canaxis. Sorry, Bill. Canaxis. And so, Bill, thanks for coming on today. I totally appreciate your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for asking.
So Bill, before we get to Canaxis, and you have quite a history of creativity, but I'm gonna try to stay on the rails of guitar in your band. How did you first stumble into playing guitar? How did you find that as your creative outlet?
What comes what comes to mind is as far as back as I can remember, I could sing pretty well. And the idea hit me is having stage fright for many years, but at the beginning especially, I saw people like on TV standing there with a microphone and how that little mic cable can't hide you.
Right.
There's nothing to hide behind.
That's true.
And that terrified me. And wireless mics are even worse, right? There's even less to hide behind.
Oh, tell me
And
about it.
so I thought, if I have something like a big guitar on my lap, it's like a barrier between me and the audience,
I get that.
and it's like this security blanket, and it's like something I can hold on to, and that. But also, you don't need backing tracks or a band if you have that. So
That's true.
I started learning acoustic guitar in 1975, and it wasn't until the 76 that I started picking up some electric stuff. And my first song on that was I attempted was More Than a Feeling by Boston, the year it came out,
More
76,
than a
and
feeling. Yeah,
practiced until my
man.
fingers literally bled.
You know what's funny is your story is sort of like the opposite of mine because you're singing and you're kind of like you said like, oh man, there's like nothing to hide behind. Let me hold this guitar. And then and you're kind of like, oh, and also I get the added benefits of having music along to sing to.
Yeah.
I'm a guitar player, but I'm blind. And so like I'm just standing still and I'm like, well, if I'm just gonna stand still, I might as well do it for a reason. So I just stood behind a microphone and I started singing.
Ah, oh, yeah, that is totally opposite. Yeah. And well,
So
and
it's
you
pretty
shouldn't have,
funny.
you shouldn't have stage fright because you can't see the audience making funny faces at you.
No, for honestly, for 100%, I'm telling you, it's very easy if you can't see the audience. Like the
Well,
only
and what's really sad is I don't know if it's North America or what, for sure in Canada, but
mm,
people that come to shows, you'd swear they're half asleep. Like
really,
they no emotion, you know.
yeah, I
They
guess it's better.
afterwards will
I
say it
can't
was really
see.
good, but they don't, they're like literally bumps on a log. They're just like
That's funny.
zombies. I'm like,
That's funny.
so you can't get any energy back from them.
Yeah, I mean
So
the
you
only
have to just look out over the crowd and imagine a sea of people that are excited, you know, and because very seldom do you get any visibly noticeable excitement from the audience. Like there's not much to vibe off of,
well,
you know.
I mean when I play that, I guess I'll interject a couple of things. Like when I used to play in heavy metal bands and I, be playing in front of crowds of people, whatever, and it's like I had, four or five other people in the like four other people in the band. It's like, okay, sure, some people are obviously looking at me, but there's other people here to look at or whatever. When I
Right.
started doing like open mic nights and just kind of playing acoustic guitar and stuff, that's when I was kind of like, whoa, okay,
Yeah.
I know like I'm being looked at because I'm the only dude up here, and so it's like that's what so even though I couldn't see him the first few times, I was pretty like actually nervous or whatever because I was like, man, I just know everyone's actually like,
Well, not being able to
looking
see
at
them,
me.
I could see not being able to see them even worse because if your mind plays tricks on you and goes to the darkest places, assuming the worst, that's
Mm,
even
mm.
worse,
No,
right?
I
It
hear
depends
you.
on your state of mind,
Yeah. Yeah, no, well,
right?
I guess that leads into what I was gonna say is I guess when I was in a heavy metal band, that like the crowd interaction and stuff to me was I wouldn't say more important, but there was more of a blend of that into my playing. But if I play like an open mic night, or if I play acoustically, or probably even if I play in a heavy metal band again or whatever kind of band, I more enjoy kind of like taking in the playing, the liveness of playing. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like even though you've played maybe a couple of songs or a bunch of songs over and over again, regardless, it's still that song and it's going to be its own timestamp in time. And you may sing it good or bad, but like it's going to be its thing that time. And I love being like in that moment. And so
Yeah,
like whether or not someone enjoys me being in my moment, it's like good if they do, but like I don't let that kind of, if no one's like into it, I don't let it take me out of being in that moment, you know?
I think that's one of the things. I'm a huge Bruce Coburn fan. I've learned a lot of. Well, I can sing a lot like him too, and I kind of got my start in more folk rock type stuff. But when he plays live, he's pretty much for the most part plays solo live. Very seldom
Mm,
uses a band, but he plays with his eyes closed a lot. Think too, and you could tell he is lost in the music,
absolutely. Absolutely.
and
Like
and and
there's
it is so much more exciting because he's putting everything into it.
Yeah, I mean, there's times like when I get into kind of like that zone or that Zen kind of
Yep,
area, like when I'm
yep,
playing I could be live with a band, I can be playing my guitar, singing the song, but then like this other part of me can be kind of like not disconnected, but like I can hear everything kind of like, and then I'm like,
yeah,
whoa, wait a minute, like I'm producing this, I gotta like pay attention. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I gotta like bring myself back into it to like.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, you got to reel yourself back in.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, oh wait, I'm actually playing this. I gotta like make sure I don't mess this up.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a cool tightrope act. You know, if you can do it right, where you can ride that electric wire of energy
Mm,
and
mm,
emotion without losing yourself. You know, where you can kind of, to me, like if you can keep that balance, that I don't think a lot of people do. Some people are very wooden performers. You can tell there's
mm,
almost like
mm,
they're like a cover band of themselves. Like,
mm, mm.
and the opposite of that would be someone like this band I've been working with lately, one of my favorites from the '80s, The Call. Their frontman Michael Bean. When I saw them twice live, once in '87 and once in '90. I had never seen such a dynamic frontman. Um, he was all basically crying the lyrics as if he just if he just was just sharing some
Mm.
dramatic event of his life, and he was
Yeah,
expressing it to you right then. Every performance was like that. None of them was cookie cutter. You never knew what to expect, and the band just did their best to keep up with this guy. And it was, I was actually in shock every time I watched him. I'd never ever experienced someone that alive, that emotional, and that charismatic. He was like two Elvises. I just
wow.
didn't even make sense how powerful he was, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and so he had a big influence on me ever since '86 when I first heard the Reconciled album. And ironically enough, I've been working with the band lately, um, doing videos for them and doing their YouTube channel. And now recently they heard my demo singing their songs. Their singer died in 2010, and they want to tour still. They're thinking of possibly letting me be the new frontman, which is like,
That's pretty awesome.
that doesn't mean make sense. They were literally my favorite band of the '80s.
I know that's like that movie Rockstar kind of situation, right?
Yeah,
And
it just doesn't like
almost
I.
in a sense kind of thing.
Yeah, I just still can't believe it. Like their booking agent, he's basically saying if I'm not the guy, he doesn't want to do it. Like that's
Hmm.
how much of a
No
fan he is of
kidding.
me. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and
So what did they
that's what's
see? Did they
motivating
see
him.
songs of like videos of you singing their songs or something?
I sent him audio. I
That's
went.
funny.
I took songs off their CDs,
Yep.
upload them to BandLab, where you can separate them into
Oh
four different
yeah.
tracks,
Yep. You
and
separated
then
out the
then then I
vocals
then I
and
loaded them into my DAW, muted the vocal track,
that's
then
funny.
recorded my vocals. So you're hearing me sing over the exact backing
That's
track,
really funny.
right? And then of course I'm an engineer, right? So I purposely did the exact vocal production techniques that they used. So you're hearing me in the same context and see how
Hmm.
my voice holds up. It even fooled me.
That's funny.
I can't even tell me and the other guy apart sometimes. That's how well. And so obviously the band was impressed. And they're like, okay, yeah, we could probably tour with this guy. You know,
Dude,
and,
that's crazy.
so that's really exciting. And obviously that would be good. recognition for Kinaxis too, right? It would
Yeah.
help.
So like when you started playing guitar, you got your electric guitar. Was there someone you were just like, whoa, I like that playing, or like was there someone
Well,
you
yeah, I
started
mean,
gravitating towards?
Boston blew my mind, and then the same year was when I was introduced to Kansas. Carry My Wayward Son came out.
Yeah, no,
Both of those
totally.
songs absolutely blew my mind.
I
And
believe it.
ironically enough, very, very strange. The Lord reminded me of this recently. I remember I was 12 years old, and I remember one day, I don't even know if one of those songs was playing, but I already had been exposed to those songs.
Mm,
And I remember looking up toward the sky and like seeing one of these songs as if they were a map, and each
mm,
instrument had its own place in 3D space. Like I could see the mix. It was like a
mm.
vision. And then I said, and I this came out of my mouth, and I didn't know why, and it was really weird. I said, I pointed at it, said, "Someday that'll be me," and not
There you
knowing
go.
why. I was recently reminded of that, and it realizing that was prophetic. I ended up being that, and not only that, Kansas. I end up. I'm close. I work closely with Kerry Livgren, the guy who wrote that song. I
That's
sang on
awesome.
his second to last album. He invited me to sing on it. I've
That's
endorsed him
freaking
with
awesome.
strings with I've endorsed him with guitar strings since 2003 or 4.
Hmm.
And so that's another pinch me thing, because he's my absolute favorite rock
That's
songwriter,
crazy. That is
you know?
crazy.
And so the fact that my heroes, on all these sides, they like me as equally as an artist and want to work with me, which that doesn't make any sense. Like I still, your emotions can't really grasp that, so you just kind of, it's like a form of shock,
Yeah.
a coping
Yeah.
mechanism. So
Mm-hmm.
it actually feels like a dream. If I really think about it, I go, no, that wasn't real. It never feels real. I can say it and recount it without lying, but it doesn't really feel like reality. It feels like a dream that really hasn't happened yet.
No, I get
Because
that,
my
man.
because something like that, your emotions can't. It's too big for your emotions to handle.
Totally.
It's like you'd
Totally.
pop a circuit breaker. You just, that's what shock is. It's like it protects you from overload, right? And and so I'm just blessed beyond my wildest dreams, and so, and which is really odd too, I just turned 60 in April. I had a sinking feeling that late in life something was finally going to happen in a real significant, noticeable way musically,
Mm.
which I had no idea what or why. And what makes sense is that I have a really pro studio now, and I have the skills where people actually hire me to do mixing, mastering, and whatever, co-producing.
That's
And
cool.
but I also um, I've never been more prolific as a writer. My playing skills have never been as good, and my singing has never been as good. Most people
Yeah.
by 60, they're well on their way down.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm at my peak.
Yeah, I mean that latest album you guys have out, you're definitely you got plenty of gas left in the tank,
It
that's for
doesn't sound
sure.
like a 60-year-old, does it?
Yeah, not at all, man.
Yeah,
Like,
like
so speaking of you guys, like I was telling you earlier, like I was like, dude, don't take this is not like an insult by any stretch of the imagination, but I was like, I think you guys are like kind of like this space rock, like you have this ambient sound, but like futuristic, like space rock, like band, and like your vocals like you start off singing you're like singing like this kind of low bassy kind of ish like tone tone like okay yeah it's cool like I didn't expect Bill to sound like this okay you're like listening to it but then by you get a few more minutes into the song and like dude you're like belting out some like Bruce Dickinson stuff and I'm like whoa. I'm like, man, where did that come from? Just like you don't see it coming, it's just like, okay. Like, so yeah, like, dude. And the other thing I want to throw in too is like, you guys totally have like your own sound. Like, that's why it's hard to be like describe you, in my opinion, because it's like, I don't know, man. It's like, even saying like, oh, it's a little bit of this or a little bit of that. It's like, even that's kind of hard because it's really kind of like your own touch, your own thing, you know?
I as far as I know, that's every true artist that makes original music. That's their biggest goal, is to have to arrive at a sound that people recognize as their own, and that they're comfortable with, that they're happy with.
Yeah, I think
There's
that's
that
what
they don't have an
that's
identity crisis like that. To me, that's a a big accomplishment that you can finally relax and just be yourself.
I think that's like the place every musician has to be, where it's like, you know what? This is the music I produce, and like people are either going to jive with it or not. Like music is that kind of like universal language. So it's like people are either
Mm-hmm.
going to pick up what you're putting down, or they're just going to be like, you know what? That's not my thing. There's so much other music out there. People are going to find the frequency that they're on with someone else, you know?
Yeah, I find you can't. You have to try to not care what people think, and just I've heard it said before, and it's really strange. It sounds weird to say it, but you kind of have to be, even though I hate the term, you kind of have to be a narcissist.
Mm,
You have to be so much into your what you do that you don't care if anybody else likes it, but you're going to make it as good as it can be to make you as happy as it can make you, where you can't
yeah,
imagine it being any better for you. That's going to not only make it better for others that might like what you do, but it makes it more authentic.
exactly. Yeah, that's a good
And
word,
then,
authentic. I like that word.
yeah, and it becomes even more original because you're leaning 100% into it. There's no, you're not on your back leg. You're like, and it's not overconfidence. You just believe in what you do. Like
Yeah.
you're being 100% authentic. This is me. No, not making any apologies. I'm not pulling any punches. I'm not taking any prisoners. Like it or not, this is who we are, and that's what I want to hear in artists. I think of bands like the Who that took me a long time to like for some reason. But once I allowed them in, I recognize these guys. There's very few artists that are that dynamic and that comfortable in their own skin.
Mm, mm,
You know what I mean?
mm.
And there's so much energy, but it's not fake. You know, and the Call was like that too. You know, they're just like so dynamic and so they're like they really mean what they're doing. You know, and
I hear you.
to I guess to a degree, ACDC would be like that too. I mean, there's no mistake in them, and they come out of the gate, you know, pedal to the metal every time. You know, it's like whoa, and that's what you expect from them, right?
Yeah, no,
And
totally.
and to me, even mellow songs can hit you that hard as long as it's you really mean what you do. It's going to have the maximum emotional impact if you're really giving it all you can give it.
Yeah.
And not saying giving all the energy you can give it. You're giving it all the creative energy you can give it, and you're not holding back anything. You're really putting everything you think this song needs into it. And then when you step back, if you can finally say, you know what, I can't see another way to improve this. Maybe down the road, but okay, I'll put it out there and see what happens. You know, and I think that's why if I never really asked out there, but it feels to me like our fan base has been growing because of those reasons. I think they're noticing that they're taking us more serious as a more established band type thing because we're that confident in what we do about being us.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
That's the kind
totally.
that's not an arrogant confidence. That's the kind of confidence they feel like, okay, I can invest in these guys. They're not phony. You know,
No, I
I can
100%. I get that.
yeah, I think you know what I mean. It's hard to
Yeah.
put into words,
No,
but
no,
I know
you're
I
saying it
know
well.
I want bands. I'm into bands that really mean what they do, and they're not trying to be someone they're not. You know,
And
I
honestly,
like that.
that's what makes me like stuff, even if it's not in my wheelhouse. It's like
Yeah,
that makes me appreciate it almost even more. You know what I mean? Like, you know what? I
yeah,
really don't like this music, but I love that these guys have they have no qualms about being this way or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
even get guys like Neil Young. Who else? There's some other guys out there. They're not necessarily amazing singers, but they're great writers, and they have great live performances. Like they really deliver the goods.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And and then they make you they convert you to a fan of their voice by the way they do it. Just like Getty, I hated Rush for years because Getty's voice. Now I can't imagine anybody else singing it because
I hear
that's
you.
part of their sound.
I
He's
hear
that
you. Like
without you
what?
take you put someone else in there, it's not Rush anymore,
Exactly. Exactly.
right?
Like once you
But
get
it took me
used to
time.
it, once you get used
I
to
had
his
it took me a while to
voice,
warm up to it, which is
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
Sometimes you have to acclimate to things, right? It was
yeah.
so different from anything I'd heard before. It kind of scared me. I thought it was a Wicked Witch of the West singing. I literally did. It was a witch. I'm like, especially when you go really high, I'm like, what in the heck? Same with early Led Zeppelin. It scared me. I'm like, hear the screeching. I'm like, and then years later, I get used to it. I'm like, then I could appreciate them for what they were. Another good example of that was like Billy Talent. My oldest
Mm.
son used to listen to them a lot, and I hated it so much for there's something annoying about it. Maybe the punk side of it, the earlier stuff.
You listen to
And
Frank
I
Zappa at
remember
all?
yelling up the stairs saying, "Shut that crap off." I remember just screaming it. Within a year or two, I was playing it all the time and he was getting annoyed.
That's funny.
Once I understood that what they were about, it wasn't about the screaming, and I realized that they weren't screaming as much as I thought they were. I just let it get to me that they were brilliant writers, even better lyricists. And when I saw them live, unbelievable musicians. Then I like, okay, I've I've been surprised so many times by bands I wanted to hate. Another one is that I used to hate, System of a Down. Absolutely hated them. At one of my
I
favorites.
could see why.
One of my favorites now.
Yeah, no, I
They're
hear you. It's an
amazing musicians,
acquired taste.
super
Yeah.
unique,
Yeah,
and they
exactly.
really believe in what they do.
Yeah,
Like they
totally.
sell it hard,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and like maybe that's why I eventually caved. It finally the light bulb finally clicked. I'm like, oh, I saw them for what they how they saw themselves and what they were trying to put out there instead of my bias,
Yeah.
right? A
Yeah.
biases can blind you from what's really there.
Mm-hmm. No,
And the older
seriously.
I get, the more
Totally.
objective I try to be. I try to put myself in someone else's shoes. What are they actually trying to do? Not what I perceive they're doing. Don't tell them what they're doing. Find out from them what they're trying to do. You still might not love it, but good chance you'll probably appreciate it more because the context is there.
Yeah,
You're getting
exactly.
the actual context,
Yeah.
right?
No, totally.
And those are the kind of artists I really really like. There's another example is like Joni Mitchell. I mean, what the heck? What she is an alien. You know what I mean?
I
And a girl. Like, come on. Like,
actually
the more I got exposed to her,
I actually
it doesn't
heard.
make
I
sense.
I think this is funny because it actually triggered a thought that I wanted to come back around to. Are you familiar with Vinnie Colaiuta?
Oh yeah, he's a monster.
So like we were kind of talking about when you get in the zone and stuff. He was saying during this interview, it's kind of funny because he mentioned Joni Mitchell while he was saying this. So Vinny Colaiuta was talking about like, oh, I practice, I'll practice all these crazy, kind of patterns and drum beats and off time and rhythms and stuff like that. He's like, but when it's game time, he's like, what I do is I let my subconscious take over. So he's like, that's what all that practicing comes in because he's like, my subconscious takes over, and then the improvisational stuff just comes out. And I'm like,
You know what I call
that
that? I call it creative headroom.
totally. Like it was so cool though to hear him talking about it that way. I'm like, that's really awesome. Like
Yeah,
that's
well,
why you practice. You know what I
he
mean?
shows up to the same job everybody else does, but he's got a much bigger toolbox.
Yeah, no, for real. And so he was
Yep.
talking about Joni Mitchell, and he was like, she was an interesting musician because she would play these chords leaving out the thirds. So the bass player would be filling
Yep.
in all of the tone. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah. Yeah. He
fascinating.
could flatten a third or leave it major and totally influence the vibe of the song.
Yeah, it was so cool, so interesting to hear that. I was like, no kidding.
Yeah. I didn't know she did that. I just knew that she had probably hundreds of alternate tunings. She would
That
tune the
too. That
guitar
too.
to what fit the song.
Yeah, yeah.
And how do you keep track of all that? She must
Yeah.
have written it. She must have written it down. You know what I mean? How are you gonna remember it?
Or honestly, I think people that approach things differently, that's just natural. You know what I
It could
mean?
be.
She's
You
probably
know
just
what?
like,
When I've
oh,
seen her,
it's song X. Oh, tune it to this. Like, you know what I
that
mean? Like,
that wouldn't surprise me because yeah, she's like a savant. You know what I mean? When they get to that level, there's
mm-hmm.
yeah, there's people like that. Just like another guy, Phil Kagi. If you ever see him play guitar live,
I'm
when
familiar
he
with
gets in
that
the
name.
zone,
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense. Like
Mm,
that's
mm.
people need to see him live to understand. Then they'll
Philip
say that's
Kagi.
why so many people said he's the best guitar player ever lived
Hmm.
once they've seen him live.
You ever
Because
play?
when he launches, you can't believe what's happening.
You ever
You
see
know,
Danny Gatton play?
he's a freak or was. Yeah,
Dude, that guy was
yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah,
Like I was
yeah,
like when I first saw him play, I was like, "Are you kidding me right now? Like,
yeah.
how is this guy even playing like that?" I was like, "That is just ridiculous."
Yeah. When I got exposed to Steve Morse in '82, the same thing. I'm like, and I heard of the versatility, and he's the one, believe it or not, he opened me up to country style playing because
Hmm.
he made it cool.
Yeah, because he would do that crazy like bluegrassy kind of stuff, but like in
Yeah, with a lot of
like
compression and clean, and
yeah,
he made me like bluegrass because it was more bluegrass than country. And
yeah,
but because he was taking the energy of that kind of music, but basically bringing kind of a rock attitude to it and a
yeah,
shredder thing.
exactly.
And
No,
I
exactly.
never heard anybody do that before. And that I'm
No,
like,
not at
man, I got
all.
so much respect for that guy. And
Not at all.
he totally changed the trajectory of my playing. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
my
he's
picking got a lot
crazy.
better. My compositional approach opened up a lot more. You know, it's
Hmm.
if you could really dig deep onto some of their stuff that has some Baroque elements and other kind of classical depth stuff. He goes off into some not just counterpoint, but the time signature things that almost overlap
Yeah,
that
exactly.
you can't even comprehend really, but it's so organic and natural. You know he's not thinking about that. That just comes out of him.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
He could verbalize. He knows his music. He could verbalize it and tell you what it is. But it's so natural. You know he's not writing that way. He's
Yeah,
writing what
no,
just naturally
no,
flows out of him
exactly. Yeah,
because oh my gosh, yeah. So guys like
yeah.
that, absolutely. It took years to ever play anything to that level. But what I mainly wanted to be exposed to is just that level of creativity and that uniqueness. And
Exactly.
by just listening to it over and over and over, it created a creativity headroom for me.
Tim
So by
Henson,
by
there's
hearing
like
another guy
Tim
that did that
Henson.
for me when I picked up bass in the mid '80s by exposing myself to Jocko
Oh
and other
yeah,
guys like that.
yeah.
That I just by listening to them guys, my playing massively improved because I heard what's possible.
I hear
You're
you.
not going to go anywhere that you don't know you can go,
Exactly. That's why
right?
you get bragging rights if you get to play with Frank Zappa.
Yes, yes.
You know,
And I just
like
recently found out that he's as I'm starting to watch. I love YouTube, like especially on a smart TV. I was just laying on the couch and get lost. There's so many good documentaries that YouTubers are making on like progressive rock and jazz and fusion and all kinds of different things, like everything.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
one I just watched recently was The Birth of Prog Rock. It looks like Frank Zappa might be one of the very first. That
Dude,
Freak Out
Frank.
album,
Oh yeah.
people that got into that, they say they cite that album
Oh yeah.
more
No,
more so more so than King Crimson. It was before King Crimson.
yeah, yeah, no, he
And so I'm starting to open up more to him. I can see myself starting to
he
dive more into him, and
he
because I
wrote
never listened to all of his
60
stuff.
he wrote 60 albums while he was
What?
alive. 60.
I had no idea.
So listen to this. He's been dead for 30 years and he's
Yeah,
released another 30 since he's been dead.
he's had that much back material.
Exactly.
Wow.
Like because he knew he was gonna die. So he like started going insane and
Oh,
recording all
I
kinds of
didn't know
music.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, and then they just gradually released it.
Yeah.
It's history. It reminded me. Yes, one of my favorite
A
bands.
lot of it is live stuff. Like, so he recorded
Mm,
all of his stuff when he toured all through the 70s, 80s, the 60s. So, like, a lot of it too is just like really insanely good recorded live stuff that just has been sitting in the vault. And
you
like
want to know my very favorite band that birthed out of Zappa was?
the Mothers of Invention.
No, that what band that was formed from them,
Oh, was
from
it the
him?
Turtles?
Nope, Missing
Oh,
Persons.
I'm not familiar with them.
The drummer, Terry
Oh,
Bozzio,
yeah, yeah. Oh, dude, he
and
is a freak.
that band, nobody was like them. They were basically progressive new wave.
I need to listen to that now. Like,
And their first album is still their best. They had 3 albums. They're all good and they're all unique. Um, but the second one's all drum machine, which is it kind of defeats the purpose because Bozio's a
Oh,
monster, right?
yeah, what
But
the
it's
heck?
still, but it's still very good. Still, it's a creative masterpiece, really good. But
You
what
ever hear of
the first,
Polytown?
what's that?
The band Polytown?
Never heard of them.
Terry Bozzio, it's like a trio. And like
Oh,
I walked into this record store one day because I was a huge Zappa freak for a while. And like I walk into this record store and they're playing this Polytown. And I'm like, is this Terry Bozzio playing drums?
you recognized it.
Yeah. And the guy's like, actually, yeah. He's like, this is
Wow.
a band Polytown. And I was like, wow. I was like, this is some crazy stuff. But I mean, you could like Terry, but like you hear him play, you know it's him playing. That's what I mean. Like
Yeah, and that blew my
he is a
mind in a new wave
monster.
context. He was able to be himself and still play with that kind of fusiony aggression and throwing in, and they actually had odd time signature songs that were like
Hmm.
they were
Hmm.
hooky enough where people latched onto them, you know?
Hmm.
And
That's
the
crazy.
musicianship was phenomenal. Like that whole album, there's not a dud on it. It's masterpiece. I kind of I think I like it better than Till Tuesday's first album, which there's no duds on that either. And a lot
Yeah.
of bands' first albums are greatest hits because they say you've had your whole life to do your first album, then you
Right.
got a year or
No,
two to do your
exactly.
second, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
but yeah,
that back to Frank Zappa real quick. The one album, what he put out one album that's three CDs or it's three LPs, whatever.
oh wow,
It's literally called "Shut Up and Play Your Guitar,"
I remember. Yeah, I
and
remember that title. Yep.
it's like him just like soloing over these insane time signatures and stuff. It's ridiculous because
Wow.
he's just like and so not only did he produce those 60 albums or whatever, he's the one that wrote all of the music on all the albums and all the lyrics, everything, all the
Oh
horn
wow.
piece, all the horn pieces, the bass lines, the guitar parts, everything. He wrote everything.
Wow. That's
And
like
so
Kerry
that
Livgren from Kansas. That
and
same
so
thing.
that's why you
Yep.
get bragging rights if you played with Zappa because he would write things that these musicians would never even imagine. And so then they
Wow.
would see what he'd write down in the sheet music and be like, "What?" And so then
Yeah.
they would just play it because
So yeah, he truly
they would
was a
stretch him.
visionary.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and he was a trailblazer, and he had the kind of personality. He reminded me of Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull. He was just like this extreme A-type personality. It was like just like the singer of the band I used to be in, Territorial Chant. Just this very strong personality frontman that if you weren't a fan of the band on your album, if you saw them live, you'll for sure never forget them. But there's a
Absolutely.
good chance you might become a fan because
Yeah.
they're so strong, comfortable in their own skin, and they
Yeah.
have such a strong personality in it, and are able to accurately and powerfully pour that into their art. You know,
Yeah.
it's
No,
almost like you get to
absolutely.
know who they really are because they're so authentic and their personality is so strong. When they do their art, one song you felt like known them your whole life
Yeah.
because you get
Yeah.
such a clear picture of what they're about.
I
You
think
know,
Zappa's
they're
Oh, sorry, I was gonna
that
say I think Zappa's problem or what part of his problem was is like his humor and people couldn't get kind of
yes,
past that. And because of
yeah.
that, I think he was severely like overlooked or whatever. You know what I mean? Like people just he was so off center, people couldn't get it. You know what I'm
I
saying?
think a little bit. I believe it or not, I only recently got into the band Max Webster, which I guess Zappa liked them, and I think they were influenced by Zappa. Um, and they're kind of goofy too. I found out, and
Mm, mm,
very tongue in cheek type stuff. And I
mm-hmm.
think what softened me up for artists like Zappa and Webster to be able to handle them is becoming based off Kerry Livgren's recommendation. When I found out about Gentle Giant,
Mm,
they changed my world. Like, and they could go off into madrigal and medieval stuff and goofy stuff, but they were so prolific and they're so amazing at their instruments and their complexity of their recordings. It made me like everything they did. So they
mm,
softened me up for other bands that I saw as got goofballs. It made me appreciate them and see them with how they really were.
mm.
Because when you grow up with serious bands like, say, Kansas, uh, um, Rush, who else?
Right.
Boston. Well, Boston, I wouldn't say serious because they're kind of like Van Halen. A lot of their songs, almost all their songs, are major keys, but they're not. But they're not joking around. They're not goofy, right?
Mm, mm-hmm,
They're not
mm-hmm.
funny. They're not funny songs, right? or like
Right.
Foreigner growing up in them. They really mean what they're doing. They're trying to sound tough or make a bold statement. They're not joking. Where it took me a long time to, but well, it took a band like Gentle Giant to open up my um, not to take down the walls. How music had to be serious all the time,
I
you
hear
know,
you. Yeah, no, I
and
hear you.
and you can lighten up, and there can be another side to it. And I'm glad I did because it opened me up to other bands that I might never give the time of day to. That I really discovered some gems that you'd never hear on the radio, you know,
No,
and because
totally.
they had a good following and they made a living, but they were not, you know, superstars, and you know, and but yeah, that's in. But that being said, it's taken me all this time to get to the point because Zappa is he's like the extreme version of that. It's taken me till this time point in my
No,
life
absolutely.
to be where I can start feeling like it's safe to wade into Zappa waters, you know,
I get
because
that.
it was just it just I didn't it just freaked me out, to be honest, you
No,
know.
totally. No, I mean, like, and when you hear the band, like, there's like probably half of those 30 albums, you know, the 60 albums or whatever, half of those might be like they're live albums, but they're all like new songs that
Mm.
it's like he was writing so many songs, you don't have time to go in the studio, so he would do like a show, and the whole show would be like that album, basically.
And
You know what I
so
mean?
what you see is what you get when you see them live. That's basically the
But they're
studio version.
insane live.
But
Hit
that's why you'd have to have a band that's that good.
Yeah, no, they're all just complete ridiculous phenoms at the instruments they play. So like when they play live, it's basically in the studio. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Just
crazy.
like John McLaughlin's band, like Steve Morse is a big fan of
Hmm.
Mahavishnu Orchestra, and I didn't know till recently that's where Jan Hammer came from,
No
and
kidding.
also their drummer. What's their drummer's name? That um, was it Tony Williams? Was he the drummer? Oh
Uh
no, the other guy that did
I'm
Spectrum.
actually kind of terrible with a lot of band names and stuff,
Spectrum.
honestly.
He did Spectrum. That one considered the first fusion album in '73 called Spectrum.
Okay.
Um, you might have heard of him. He's a monster drummer. He's another black guy like Tony Williams. They're both just monster early '70s kind of fusion guys, but super technicians, you
Yeah,
know,
Vinnie
and great.
Colaiuta played with Zappa for a while too.
Did he? Did he really?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that definitely gives you a big feather in your cap.
I think from like I want to say like the 74 to 78 or 9 or something like that, Vinnie Colaiuta played was just drumming with him.
I hate to say, I mean, it's sad that you kind of need those experiences to get your career going for people to take you serious. It's almost like you need their leg up to get your shot because on your own, no one wants to pay attention to
Mm,
anybody new. You know
mm.
what I
Like
mean?
he gave
And
Steve Vai his like a leg up, you know, or whatever.
yeah, and how
Like
many
Steve
artists are
Vai.
just as good as those guys, but they'll never get noticed because they weren't part of a already successful group,
Right.
right? That's kind of
Yeah.
sad. And that's just kind of the way it is. And it's definitely helped Canaxis out being asked to sing on famous people's records or whatever. You know, it's like it's kind of sad that it takes that, but you know, you take it because
No, totally. Yeah.
every artist wants, you know, wants to be heard because they work this hard on the music. They want as many people to hear it as possible. You know, just because why else you do it? You don't do it just for yourself. It's meant for you're doing it for the
Others to
population.
enjoy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that's not a narcissistic thing. We're built for that, right?
Yeah, no,
Just
totally.
like
Like
comedians.
I
Comedians aren't made to be funny for themselves. They're made to make other people laugh.
Yeah, I mean, I believe everyone has an inkling of creativity in them. You know, whether it's music or whatever, like, you know, it can be cooking, woodworking, baking, sewing. I mean, everyone has a creative inkling, you know?
Yeah, and I think some things are specifically primarily for other people to enjoy.
Absolutely. Totally. Yeah, like any kind of
You
art and
know,
stuff like that, painting, sculptures, things like that, for
and we
sure.
need that. We need
Mm-hmm.
that. I mean, and when I was young, I despised once I learned guitar. Uh, my parents, when they would have company over, they were relentless. They would torture me, beg me, and beg me to play for the company until I finally gave in. They would never stop until I finally did.
That's
And
funny.
and to me, it's way easier to play for 1,000 people than for one or two.
I hear you. I
Way
get that
easier.
because you feel like you're like a spectacle or
You feel
whatever. You know what I
naked. You
mean?
feel naked.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally.
And
Totally.
it's and that's when I was younger. I had back then I had severe stage fright, right?
And especially when someone puts you on the spot, like if you're playing in front of someone, it's a planned thing. You know, you're going to be playing, you're getting ready
Yeah, it's
for
not
it. You're
sprung
like,
on you that moment. Oh,
yeah.
by the way, you're going to do this right now. It
No,
wasn't even a
exactly.
thought.
Totally.
You're
Totally.
not in the mind space. You're not prepared for it. You're not warmed up. You're not for sure not emotionally warmed up for it. You
Right.
know,
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, you're just kind of
and
like,
you're angry with your parents because they made you do this. So now you got to try to put on a happy face and try to entertain someone. That's the last thing you want to do is entertain anybody because you're angry.
Yeah, that's
You know,
funny. My mom never did that. That's kind of funny. Maybe because she hated the music I was playing.
I mean, I get it. I get it. That's what parents want to do, right? They're proud of their kids. I get it. But at the same time, it's kind of traumatic, you know.
Yeah, no, I get that for sure. So
But
coming back,
yeah,
like, speaking of Kinaxis, like, so Red is it no Return to Zero, correct? That's the latest
that's
album.
the newest one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like, what you said, there's a song on there that's been like charting in Scotland, correct? Am I right about that?
Oh no, that was the first demo album we did when we
Okay, okay.
in 2002 when Alan and I bumped into each other when I was visiting Phoenix, my parents out there because I'd left in '88, left the band. Alan was with me in '88 and moved back up here to Michigan, and then next year met my Canadian wife and eventually got married. But when I went down there in 2002 to visit, like every year or two, I'd try to go down for whatever Christmas or whatever and see my family. I usually try to, if you're there long enough, you want to do some musician-y things. So I try to find a music store to just mess around, whatever. And so I think my brother and I might have went to a guitar center. He's a musician as well. And yeah, that's where I bumped into Alan, and I hadn't seen him in what was that 4 years,
That's funny.
and and we saw each other like, hey, this is ridiculous. Give me your phone number, and like I say, by that time, internet was a thing, computers and
Mm,
software,
mm.
um,
Kind of
where
share
software
files and stuff like that.
you could record at home pretty darn well if you know what you're doing, and you could collaborate anywhere in the world.
Yeah, no, totally.
And so that's where Connexus was born. It was a semi reunion of Under the Mercy, UTM, the band we were in. It was originally called Phoenix. Where him and I, we were kind of the ones that there was a spark there. Even when we first met in '85, I brought it up to Alan recently. We both had just recently admitted we both felt that spark that was really unique thing. There was something there.
Yeah.
We knew it was like lightning in a bottle, and
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to see what comes out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing that we would only have a couple of years together in Arizona, and that some years later, well, actually, it was quite a long time. From '88 to 2002, that's a long time. I could think of '92. No, that's a long time later. Not '92, 2002. So yeah, it's 14 years later. That it we would be able to and want to do something together again, and that it would spark so quickly. Like I think 6 songs came out unbelievably fast,
That's cool.
and they were decent demos. They were listenable, but we put them up like on mp3.com, or there were sites like that.
Yeah,
Maybe a
yeah.
my maybe a MySpace thing or something. And what happened there was some DJs that were in Scotland. I think it was, I don't know if they were a husband and wife or boyfriend girlfriend, whatever, but they were a duo. Some tag team type radio personalities. They became fans of ours just based off those original demos. I'll call
Hmm.
them demos, compared to what we do now. But we would not know unless they emailed me, said we figured you'd get a kick out of knowing that 2 of your songs are in primetime rotation on one of the biggest FM stations in Scotland. You're being played right next to Nickelback and those type of people,
That's
and
crazy.
they risk their jobs because it takes payola to get played on
Hmm.
big.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Especially
so
then.
yeah, yes, so that was like 2004, I think. And
Yeah.
I'd never dreamed it would be in reality that would ever get on the radio. And that's without a label. And I've heard many stories about bands that they didn't get broke until some DJ somewhere got a hold of some promo thing and decided they're going to play it and play it and play it, play it. And then the snowball started in that one town. And then the other stations picked up on it. There's probably three famous bands I just heard of. Eurythmics was the most recent one I found out. No one paid attention, but there's some DJ that picked up on it. And might have been the same thing with Tom Petty, where one DJ believes in them and they start playing it and playing it and playing it until finally enough. It's like hitting flint over some kindling
Yeah, no,
until enough of a
exactly.
spark goes and then the fire spreads, right?
I hear you.
And,
Yeah.
it's like you need someone in your corner to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Someone
Mm-hmm.
believes in you and says, you know what? And these people risk their jobs. You just don't do that. Like I wish I could contact him now and tell him how amazing that was, and how
I
much I
hear you.
appreciate that. Even though I don't think that specifically did much, but what it did, it it made us realize that maybe we do have something.
Yeah, like, hey, if we can compete on that level, that's pretty crazy,
If
right?
if if people are willing to risk their jobs to put us in rotation so others can hear what they really believe is something worth listening to. And they weren't horrible, but oh my god, I would never play those for anybody now. To me, they're at best a half decent demo, just quickly done, just so you can hear how the song goes. Maybe good
Mm-hmm.
enough to show to a label, just so they can hear all the parts, hear the hooks, get a basic idea. It's just like a quick storyboard of what we're
Yeah.
trying to do. Just the basics. We're not going to spend a lot of time put into this if no one's going to invest in it. Why would we go all the way with it? And so that was really cool, because I think what that did for me is it validated what we're doing enough to want to keep doing it. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
because I think a lot of musicians have a low self esteem or self image, or they're insecure in some way. I think that's just
Oh,
par for the.
totally. I'm
I
my
think that's
own
just the
worst
nature of the
critic.
beast. I
Yeah,
think that's the artistic spirit is that way. It's fragile.
my problem is every time I see a guitar or whatever, listen to a guitar player or a singer, whatever, my first reaction, and it's out of, appreciation for the skill level, or, or me just appreciating whatever it is they're doing, but I'm always like, oh, I can never be that good or
Oh,
whatever. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
I could never
Yep.
do that. I could not like I've stopped doing that, but it's taken me a very long time.
And you resent hearing that music that made you feel that way.
Oh, you're like get jealous of it, kind of, in a
Yeah.
sense, or whatever, like it can turn into a very bad thing. What you appreciated turns into, you know, you beat yourself up over or whatever.
I never dreamed I would get over that.
Mm, mm.
That eventually it became something when I heard someone like, say, like Pliny, or what's that other guy you were saying,
Tim
Periphery.
Henson.
Yeah, guys like that, they are phenoms. They are. There's something not, or Sean Lane or guys like that, just they shred beyond imagination, right? It just doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense. That it's so intimidating that it makes you feel so small that you need a microscope to see you.
Yeah, like
And
I literally said the les on one of the Frank Zappa has a part he has a series, I guess you would call it, of albums. He said they're called "You Can't Do That on Stage," and he has 6 volumes of it, and each one is 2 CDs. So, and it's all just crazy, insane live stuff. Well, one song on volume like 5, he introduces his son Dweezil. And he's like, "This is my son Dweezil. It's his first time playing live." And you figure out the math, and he's probably like 14 or 15, something
wow,
like that. You hear the kid, I hear this kid, not only does he play this like ridiculous solo, but then his father jumps in and they start soloing back and forth. And
wow,
then you can't even tell who's who. Like, I
no
don't even know who
way.
you're like, I don't even know who's playing that ridiculous part anymore,
That
And so then the song gets done, and I literally was like, why do I even play guitar? Like,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? It's like, but I don't say things like that anymore. But it's just like you hear things like that, and you judge yourself because you're just like, that is just obscene, you know?
I
But
know. There's so many times I wanted to throw my guitar out the window, and just say, "Who am I kidding?" And now when I hear someone that just blows my mind, yeah, there's an initial shock, but I don't, for some reason, I don't get this overwhelming, depressed, want to quit feeling anymore. I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
wow,
exactly.
look at what is possible.
Yeah,
Someone just
exactly.
educated me. Look at, there's a door over here you can go in. You didn't even know that
Mm-hmm.
existed. I'm like, wow.
Yeah,
And now that's another tool I can get a little bit of and work at it a little bit, just so I have that in my toolbox as another creative thing I can pull out at any given time when that's the right thing I want to express, if that's going to help the song
yeah, no,
speak even
totally.
better. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
basically, I'm grateful to them. Wow, you gave me another language to add to my, or
Exactly.
more words to add to my vocabulary to be even
Mm-hmm.
more expressive. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
you
totally.
you've made me a better musical linguist. you know
Yeah. Yeah.
and so that's a good thing, but I think that's just a maturity thing that can come with age. I don't think so. I think some people never get over it. They're so insecure. But I'm so glad that's not the case anymore, because it's torture. It
No, I
really
hear
is
you.
a
I hear
terrible,
you.
terrible feeling, you know.
Well,
But
well, Bill, what would you advice would you give to people wanting to learn to play guitar, start singing, or get in a band, or maybe get into engineering? Like, what kind of advice would you give to people?
well, first thing, if you're going to learn guitar, you like I tell all my students, do not start online. You need a physical teacher, and you
Mm,
need a really, really good one that's really patient, but they're really strict on technique.
mm.
Technique number one. And they make you practice as slow as possible, because the only way to play fast is to play slow perfectly.
That's true.
And my best teacher, who he was a really old guy when I was starting, it's like around 1980. I never had that many teachers. He was a kind of a jazzer, and he used to play with Les Paul, and that, of course, blew my mind.
Mm,
And
that's crazy.
the one lesson I'll never forget, it was the best lesson I ever had, and it's so weird. This is almost like a dream, the way this happened. It doesn't even make sense. But this lesson, he said, okay, play a scale. So about the only one I knew at the time was a second position A major scale, full 2 octaves vertically, right? That kind of a that thing, starting with your second finger, right? Like a G major scale, that's what it
Mm-hmm.
was.
Mm-hmm.
So I played that. He said, okay, play it really slow. So da 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 da. I thought that was slow. He goes, way too fast. So I slowed it down, maybe half as fast. Way too fast. That's all he kept saying.
That's
He
funny.
didn't tell me why. He didn't. He kept doing it until somehow the light bulb went off. He was teaching me the secret to learning.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the best way I can describe a way analogy to picture this is back in the days when you could really control the speed of burning CDs right down to one time.
Yeah.
Now it's, I think, four is the slowest you can do now, which is really sad. I used to burn my disc at one. It just takes a lot longer, but when
Yeah,
you
it
burn it
did.
at playing time, you get a much deeper, truer burn with probably no errors. And not only that, that disc will last almost as long as a glass master,
I hear you.
and because it's burning deeply.
Hmm.
And when you really learn something, I was told your brain actually folds. It gets a crease in it. It gets a rut, a good rut that you won't forget. Bad
That's
ruts are ones
true.
that you want to fill in, but you want
Mm.
to create good ruts, ones that are second nature. You automatically do it, like breathing and blinking. Those are
I
ruts.
hear you.
They're built in. So
Mm-hmm.
he taught me is when you play really slow, you're making it impossible to forget.
Hmm.
You're burning that deeply into your brain. So now you can go from playing super slow to playing 10 times faster without even building up, because you are the ones and zeros are so perfectly burned into your brain. your four fingers automatically know what to do, even at a much higher speed than what you were doing.
That's interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
Where I remember, like a lot of people trying to practice, you learn a lick, say like the that kind of the first fast riff in Carry On Wayward Son, da, 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 that reverse
Yeah,
pentatonic.
yeah, yeah.
If you try to play that up the tempo when you're just kind of a beginner, it's gonna be all slop. So the best thing you can do is try to be disciplined and learn it slow. Even if you want to save your pride, do it alone until you can play it without mistakes. And now when you play it in front of someone else, you can play it maybe full speed, but with no mistakes. And
Yeah,
maybe with a little
yeah.
bit of feeling in it, right? Maybe with a little bit of harmonics added in there, whatever, and a little bit of vibrato, whatever. But you own it now, right?
I hear you.
So,
Yeah.
so what I teach my students is the fastest way, the quickest way to get fast is slow. And I use the example of the turtle and the hare.
Hmm.
Who always wins the race? The turtle.
Hmm. That's
Because
interesting.
the rabbit is uses up all his steam at the beginning of the marathon, and halfway there he conks out and passes out. Before you know it, waddling past him is the turtle, and he wins the race. You
Man,
know,
I
and
hear you.
so that's I think that's what helped me become having first of all having a learning disability. I discovered really bad. I was a horrible student, like a lot of guys are. I'm really much a hands-on. I need someone to show me and then let me do it physically, and then
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
we're tactile learners. We don't learn. A lot of guys don't learn from books like girls. It's
Mm,
different. And and so you need a teacher that can show you slowly and carefully and non-intimidating, right? And have a calming manner, but they're really skilled what they do. Show you slowly and in the right order. Start at the right places. Don't start in the middle, where they can't even grasp what you're doing.
right,
And
right.
I've seen a lot of teachers they try to. It's almost like they're trying to intimidate their students by playing all these shredding stuff. It's like, you want them to quit, or what are you trying to do? You don't want to
Yeah.
intimidate people. Try to why do you need to impress a beginner? It's like, you want, they're already intimidated. So try to find somebody that is they got a sweet personality. They really know their stuff. They're patient. They're really good at technique, and they're really disciplined and not letting you go any further until you've owned the first step. Because you can't build anything you build quickly, it becomes a house of cards that will fall down very easily. Easy come, easy go.
Hmm.
Each
Mm-hmm.
block has to be laid carefully with enough mortar under each one. And then when it's dry, you can firmly, without any worries, build the next layer and then the next layer, and they'll never need to be tore down.
Hmm.
But this culture, even worse than when I was young, patience is something that's very rare. We
Yeah, I
want we
hear
want
that.
quick results. We
Mm-hmm.
want instant everything.
Yeah.
We want drive-through food. We want Google answers. We want, we feel like we this generation is at a great disadvantage because they think it's normal for stuff to come quick and easy, and that's only the norm in the last 20 years or so.
Yeah. Yeah,
Really,
no, totally.
like I don't even know if they know what mail is other than Amazon packages. Like
Exactly.
whoever gets a letter, whoever writes a letter or gets a letter, maybe a birthday card, but even now they do e-cards,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
or
No,
just a
exactly.
text message, happy birthday with a smiley face or a cake emoji. You know what I mean? Like the paradigm has shifted so much that it's actually really ripped people off from the substance of life that are true building blocks on who you can be personally and professionally.
I hear you,
And
Bill.
so I think, and that's why basically what I've become, I found out working with youth has helped a lot too. I don't just teach guitar. I'm a life coach because
I hear you.
some lessons are literally just advice.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
and some of these young kids don't have a father or a mother, and and they've and when they or maybe when they did have them, they were really toxic and really, so they need a mentor that's stable, that they look up to speak into their life the blocks that are missing. They need a big brother put those pieces in them. And when in this, so they need someone that's a good mentor, but that's compassionate enough when they see something missing, they're willing to say, wait a second. There's what's fix that broken piece. Then we can start putting other things on. It's like you don't put icing on a cake until the cake's built, right? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
first things first, and that's what I found to be some of the most rewarding things is when I've seen some of my students later on turn into really good parents, citizens, workers, maybe a business owner, that I feel like, there's probably something that I've given to them that was at least a push or a push start or the starter fluid toward something productive in their life. That was the
Yeah.
inspiration or maybe the wisdom they needed to say, oh, yeah, maybe I'll go this direction instead of this direction. And
Abs-
man, that's so satisfying. So if you can find someone that's not just a teacher, but they're a mentor,
yeah.
there there's a lot of people can wiggle their fingers fast, but how many people are wise? How many people are patient? And how many people actually care about you? Where
No,
if you called them
totally.
if you called them on a weekend and you were really upset about something, they would take the time and say, hey, slow down. Tell me what's the problem. They're there for they're invested in you, not just that 20-30 bucks they can get from you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
That
definitely.
that that's the
Absolutely.
ones. That's who I would look for. There's some out there,
Well,
but look for them because you're going to get more from them than anybody else. Because
but
you're going to be better than just being able to wiggle your finger faster. You're going to have the advantage of strength of character and wisdom that carries on your whole life. And what that also does, that helps you make better musical decisions, and that helps you be a better bandmate because you're not so self-involved. When you can rise up high enough to see the panoramic vision, you can see the big picture. Now you can see that it's a puzzle where everybody has a part to play, and you're not the puzzle yourself. You're not a one-piece puzzle. Everybody thinks that they're the king of the universe until you get up high enough to realize you're so small. You're part of a multi-billion-dollar piece puzzle, but it's beautiful, and it doesn't mean you're any less. But everybody else is just as important, and how beautiful it is that I get to be a part of that huge picture.
I hear you.
And that
Well,
way,
Bill,
when you have that mentality of if you ever play in a group or play on a sports team or something, you become the best team player ever. And it's real because you actually love the whole thing. You love all the other players. You're not there to show yourself off. You're so glad to be part of something that's so cool. You get how great it is to be part of the sum is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right?
yeah,
That kind of
absolutely.
whatever.
Yeah.
That when you get that, that makes you way more excited about playing. You know, that
Yeah.
makes you want to. It doesn't make you just better at playing with others. It makes you want to play with others.
Yeah. No,
It
totally.
makes you not want to be a solo artist. Not that it's wrong to do solo stuff, but it makes you realize the value of interacting and working with other musicians. There is more strength. McCartney and Lennon, many people say they wrote better together than separately. There's something to be said for that. You
Yeah.
know,
No,
this
totally.
the strength in numbers, safety in numbers. And this generation, they'll do themselves a great service if they can learn to surround themselves with the kind of people that are not narcissists. They're stable, mature people that are not only good at what they do, but they're good examples to follow. Right?
There you go.
Hitch your wagon to something that's going to pull you where you should go, even if it seems impossible and it's scary. You know what? Get over it because
Yeah.
you never know where they might take you. And I've been blessed enough. Let's say the guitar design thing. I am so grateful to guys like John Backlund and Murray Kuhn, these unbelievable designers that when I realized that I might have the knack for this, when I realized, okay, wow, I might, it seems like I can design guitars. I'm really raw at it. So I'm glad I had the courage to email, like say, John, say, hey, I've been thinking about getting into this and I'm a big fan. Would it be okay if once in a while I sent you something I'm working on just so you could tell me what I'm doing wrong? He said, absolutely. No insecure competitive thing. And within a year or two, he in public said to about one of my designs, That's one of the coolest guitar designs I've ever seen. Imagine hearing that from your hero, and it because of him, he got you there. I mean, that that just blows my mind. You can't repay someone enough for that, you know.
No, I hear
So
you.
at this stage in life, to me, one of the biggest things I preach mentorship. You know, in fact, I don't know how I'd even be alive or not, or maybe not in jail if it is as intense as I was as a young kid. If I didn't wasn't exposed to people that I absolutely worship the ground they walk on. They were
Mm.
such amazing people. They were so stable. They're so wise, and they truly cared about me. I could tell they wasn't fake. And I was one of those rare kids that when we'd have uncles and grandparents, whatever, come over, and they a lot of times wanted to be in a room by themselves. My ear was I was as close to their room as possible, listening to every word they said. I was absolutely fascinated with the stories they would tell. You're hearing firsthand accounts. It's basically a time machine, you know. And I got to experience basically what they went through and what they learned, like say the Depression, the Great Depression. I felt like I was there hearing those stories, and all the other kids were off. Oh, I just want to play, do this. I was like an old soul as a young kid, and I'm so glad. And to this day, I absolutely love old. I'm almost one of them now, but I'm fascinated because I want to interview everyone I meet. Like,
I hear
you
you.
were there. What was it like? What
Yeah.
was it like when the first color TV came out, or you know when you got your first radio? Like, what that had to be monumental. Or when you were a teenager when the Beatles came on at Sullivan, what was that like? You know, to know people that they firsthand experienced that. You know, it's like that's just amazing to me. You know, and so to me, the only way to reach greatness is to expose yourself to greatness.
Absolutely. And
I think it's a
Bill,
baton. It's a baton that's passed on.
yeah, no, totally. And Bill, I appreciate that all everything. And thank you so much for coming on and telling everyone your story with Canaxa. And is you guys are in Bandcamp, right?
Yeah, that's well. We have some stuff on YouTube. I'm slowly getting good at the video thing, but it takes time. So I have a few on there. And what's cool about Bandcamp, I found you can put videos on there now. So I do have
Okay.
one video on Bandcamp.
Okay.
Yeah, but
And
we
is
have
it like is it canaxis.bandcamp.com or something like that?
exactly. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
And I have a few other projects I'm part of. There's Red Iron Road bandcamp.com. We have one album so far. I only sing one song, but it's done all my studio. I wrote most of the stuff and worked with Cal Walker. There's a lot of similarities there,
All
but
right.
it's a little bit more rootsy, maybe. Um, Even though there's a lot of variety there, you might like that. And then there's this new project that we only have two songs finished. It's with two of the guys from the Trace Adkins band, Brian Wooten
That's
and John
cool.
Spittle. The band's called I-75.
That's
So it'd be
cool.
i75band.bandcamp.com because there's other people that decided to use the name I-75. We got two up
Awesome.
on there, and that's more Southern rock, sort of,
Okay.
kind of. I wanted to because like Brian, he's a Texas guy. He's from he knows the guys like from like Eric Johnson and Stevie Ray Vaughan. He's actually sold guitars and bought guitars from those guys. He's a
That's
Texas,
crazy.
and he's actually well known too. His band Too Smooth in Texas, when bands would come through, they eventually got the word that no, do not let them warm up for you. You will regret it.
All
He was in that
right.
band.
Well, that's awesome, man. So again, the Bill, again, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it so much. And everyone, check out all those Bandcamp links will be in the show notes. And everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading, and don't forget to embrace your storm. See ya.